The emergency signal cut through the dark void of space like a scream. Commander Emma Blake stood on the bridge of her ship, the Prometheus, watching the flashing red light on her screen. Something was wrong at HFY, a dead mining planet on the edge of known space. "Commander, the signal is coming from the main excavation site," said Lieutenant David Harris, her communications officer. He was a young man with nervous hands that always moved when he spoke. "They keep saying they found something. Something impossible." Emma frowned. She had been in space for 15 years, and nothing was truly impossible anymore. But the fear in the miners' voices made her uneasy. "Set course for HFY. Maximum speed." 3 days later they arrived. But they were not alone. 4 other ships floated in orbit around the dead planet. Emma recognized them immediately. The crystalline vessel belonged to the Keth, an ancient race made of living glass. The dark hive ship carried the Zoran, insect-like creatures who thought as one mind. The sleek silver craft held the Anine, tall gray beings who claimed to be the oldest race in the galaxy. And finally, a massive Council command ship sat above them all. Emma felt her stomach tighten. The Galactic Council only sent representatives when something truly important happened. Humanity had only been part of the Council for 40 years. Most of the older races still treated humans like children who had just learned to walk. On the planet's surface, Emma walked through corridors of ancient stone alongside the alien representatives. The Keth ambassador, whose name translated to Bright Stone, floated ahead. Its crystalline body clicked and chimed as it moved. "I still do not understand why humans are here," Brightstone said through its translator device. "This discovery requires experienced minds, not newcomers who barely understand faster-than-light travel." Emma's jaw clenched, but she said nothing. Beside her, Dr. William Grant, her chief scientist, put a gentle hand on her arm. William was an older man with kind eyes and gray hair. He had taught Emma to pick her battles carefully. The vault lay 3 kilometers underground. Its entrance was massive, carved from solid black stone that seemed to drink in their lights. Strange symbols covered every surface, flowing and shifting like water. "These markings," William whispered, running his scanner over the wall. "They're not from any known civilization. The dating puts them at, no, that can't be right." "What is it?" Emma asked. William's face had gone pale. 8 million years old. Maybe older. The other scientists stopped talking. Even Brightstone's clicking fell silent. 8 million years ago, none of their civilizations had existed. The galaxy had been a different place entirely. Inside the vault, holographic projectors flickered to life. Images filled the air around them, showing a galaxy Emma barely recognized. Stars were in different positions. Entire nebulas had not yet formed. 2 great powers dominated the ancient records. The first built magnificent cities that floated in space. They created gardens on dead worlds and lifted primitive species up to the stars. The records called them the architects. The second power consumed everything. Planets, stars, even the fabric of space itself, all fuel for their endless hunger. These were the devourers. For thousands of years, the 2 civilizations fought across 1,000 worlds. The architects created. The devourers destroyed. It was a war that shaped the entire galaxy. Then, suddenly both vanished. Every ship, every station, every trace of their existence simply disappeared. The records ended with no explanation. "Mythology," Brightstone declared. "Ancient peoples always exaggerate their importance. These architects and devourers probably destroyed each other. Nothing more." But William had found something else. A final chamber hidden behind the others. Emma followed him inside. A single hologram waited for them. It showed a figure that looked almost human but not quite. The being spoke in a language that predated all known speech, but the translation appeared in their minds as clearly as spoken words. "If you have found this message, then our gambit may yet succeed. The devourers sleep, but they will wake when the cycle completes. Only the inheritors can stand against them. We have marked them in ways that will survive the long dark. Look for those who carry our essence within their very blood. They are our children born of time itself. When the stars align as they were before, the inheritors must rise, or all that we built will fall to darkness forever." The hologram faded. Silence filled the chamber. "When does this cycle complete?" Emma asked, though she already feared the answer. William checked the star charts embedded in the warning. His hand shook. 3 weeks. The alignment happens in 3 weeks. The Anine representative made a sound like wind through hollow reeds. "This is obviously a hoax." Ancient civilizations often created dramatic warnings to make themselves seem important. But Emma could not shake the cold feeling spreading through her chest. Something in that warning felt real. Felt urgent. She looked at William. His eyes reflected the same fear she felt. 3 weeks was not very long at all. The first colony died on a Tuesday. New Hamburg, a human settlement of 40,000 people on the outer edge of explored space, sent out a distress signal at exactly 0847 hours. The message lasted 17 seconds before cutting to nothing but static and silence. Emma stood in the communications room of the Prometheus, listening to the recording for the 5th time. A woman's voice, panicked and breathless, shouted about ships appearing from nowhere. Then screaming. Then nothing. What did the rescue teams find? Emma asked quietly. David Harris looked down at his console. Nothing, Commander. No debris. No bodies. No radiation signature. It's like 40,000 people just stopped existing. 2 days later, 3 more colonies vanished. One belonged to the Anine. One to the Zoran. One to the Keth. The pattern became clear and terrifying. Something was moving through space from the outer rim toward the center of the galaxy, and everything in its path simply disappeared. Emma requested an emergency council meeting. She stood in the great chamber on Centrum Prime, the council's capital station, surrounded by representatives from every major civilization. Holographic displays showed the attack pattern. Red dots marked each lost world. There were now 27 of them. We must act immediately, said Admiral James Porter, the senior human military officer. He was a large man with gray hair and a voice that commanded attention. Every hour we waste in discussion, more people die. For once, the elder races agreed. The Anine High Speaker, a being so tall it had to bend to fit in the chamber, spoke in its whispering voice. Assemble the defense fleet. We will meet this threat with the full strength of the Council. Within 6 days, the largest military force in galactic history gathered at a point called the Outer Junction. 2,000 warships from every Council race, armed with weapons developed over millennia. Energy cannons that could boil oceans. Particle beams that could crack planets. Quantum disruptors that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. Emma watched from the bridge of the Prometheus. Her ship was not a warship, but William's knowledge of the ancient records might be needed. She had also made sure her younger brother Thomas was assigned to a reserve squadron. He was a fighter pilot on the carrier Defiance, and something deep in her gut told her this battle would not go as the Council expected. The enemy found them first. Ships emerged from the darkness between stars. They were massive, 10 times larger than the biggest Council vessels. Their hulls seemed to flow and shift like liquid metal, changing shape even as Emma watched. They matched the descriptions from the ancient vault perfectly. The Devourers had awakened. All ships, this is Admiral Porter. Weapons free. Fire at will. The space between fleets erupted in light and energy. Every ship in the Council Armada unleashed everything they had. Energy beams bright enough to blind, missiles that moved faster than thought, weapons that bent reality itself. The Devourer ships simply absorbed it all. Emma watched in horror as brilliant energy beams struck the dark hulls and vanished, as if swallowed by a hungry mouth. The enemy vessels grew brighter, moved faster. Every attack made them stronger. They're adapting, William said beside her, his voice hollow with shock. Their hulls are learning from each weapon type and neutralizing it. I've never seen anything like this. The Devourer counterattack was devastating. Beams of absolute darkness lanced out, striking Council ships. Where the beams touched, matter simply ceased to exist. Ships didn't explode. They didn't burn. They just fell apart, their atoms unmade, their crews lost to the void. The Defiance took a direct hit. Emma saw it happen on her display. The carrier's shields collapsed like paper, and half the ship dissolved into nothing. The rest tumbled through space, venting atmosphere and bodies. Thomas? Emma's scream echoed through the bridge. She pulled up the pilot roster with shaking hands. Her brother's fighter was still in the launch bay when the ship was hit. Status unknown. Commander, we're receiving a general retreat order, David reported, his voice cracking. Admiral Porter is pulling everyone back. The battle had lasted 4 hours. 70% of the Council fleet was gone. 1,400 ships and millions of lives, erased as if they had never existed. The survivors limped back toward the galactic core, their pride and their power shattered. Emma sat in her command chair, staring at her brother's status listing. Unknown. Not confirmed dead but not alive either. Just unknown, floating in the vast emptiness with thousands of others. Admiral Porter's next announcement came 3 hours later. The Council had made a decision. The Outer Rim was lost. All colonies in the path of the Devourer advance would be evacuated if possible, abandoned if not. Resources would be concentrated on defending the core worlds. Most of humanity's colonies were in the outer rim. They were being left to die. Emma looked at William. We need to find out who these inheritors are. It's our only chance. William nodded, his face grim. I'll start running genetic comparisons from the ancient records. If these inheritors exist, we'll find them. Emma turned back to her console, pulling up everything they had learned from the vault. Somewhere in those ancient warnings was the key to survival. She just hoped they would find it before everyone she loved was erased from existence. William burst into Emma's quarters at 3 a.m, his tablet clutched in trembling hands. He looked like he had not slept in days, and from the wild look in his eyes, Emma knew he had found something extraordinary. Run it again, Emma said, staring at the screen he thrust in front of her. This has to be wrong. William's fingers flew across the tablet, bringing up the same results for the 4th time. It's not wrong. I've checked it 100 different ways. The genetic markers described in the ancient texts for the inheritors match perfectly with human DNA. Not similar. Not close. Perfect. Emma felt her world tilt sideways. That's impossible. We've only been in space for 200 years. These records are 8 million years old. I know what it sounds like, William said, pacing her small quarters like a caged animal. But the evidence is right here. The architects left specific genetic sequences in their warnings, markers that would identify their chosen inheritors. Those exact sequences exist in human DNA. In every human who has ever lived. Emma sat down heavily on her bunk. Her mind raced through the implications. If this was true, it meant humanity was not young at all. It meant they were the oldest race in the galaxy, just wearing a new face. We have to tell the Council, she said finally. The Galactic Council chamber was not built for drama, but Emma's presentation created chaos anyway. She stood before the assembled representatives, showing genetic comparisons, translation matrices, and probability calculations. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same impossible conclusion. Brightstone's crystalline form flickered with colors that indicated amusement. This is absurd. Humans, the youngest and most primitive species in the Council, claiming to be descended from the legendary architects? You misread the data because you want to be special. The Keth is correct, the Anine High Speaker said in its whispering voice. Humans grasp at importance they have not earned. 2 centuries in space does not make you ancient. But Admiral Porter stood up, his face grave. There's more evidence. Our weapons work against the Devourers when yours don't. The chamber fell silent. Porter continued, human kinetic weapons, primitive railguns and missiles, damage their hulls. Our nuclear devices create disruptions in their adaptive systems. Every other race uses energy weapons that the Devourers simply absorb. But our old-fashioned explosives and solid projectiles actually hurt them. There's also the tactical data, added Captain Rebecca Stone, a frigate commander who had survived the first battle. Human pilots confuse the Devourer targeting systems. Our strategies don't follow logical patterns the way other races do. We improvise, we take risks that make no mathematical sense. And it works. Emma pulled up another display. 3 days ago, a Devourer boarding party captured the wreckage of the human transport Morning Star. 40 crew members were taken alive. According to our intelligence, the Devourers immediately withdrew from that sector instead of processing the prisoners like they do with other species. Why would they do that? The Zoran Collective buzzed through its 1,000 voices. Because they recognized something, William said quietly. He activated a new recording, audio captured by Intelligence Officer Rachel Moore from an intercepted Devourer transmission. The translation appeared on everyone's displays. The children of the Makers have returned. Reassess primary directives. Genetic analysis confirms inheritor status. Recommends strategic withdrawal pending command decision. The chamber exploded with voices. Clicking, buzzing, whispering, and shouting all blended together in chaos. Emma let them argue while William worked frantically on his tablet, pulling up the final piece of evidence. I found it, William said, his voice barely audible over the noise. The last record in the Koresh 4 vault. It was encrypted, buried under layers of protection. I only cracked it an hour ago. He projected the translation into the center of the chamber. Every voice fell silent as they read the words. We have failed. The Devourers are too strong, too adaptable. We cannot defeat them through force. Therefore we choose a different path. We will scatter ourselves across the galaxy as primitive life, encoding our legacy in genetic sequences that will survive through evolution. We will become small, fragile, mortal. We will forget who we were. But in time, our descendants will rise again, tempered by the struggle of existence, strengthened by experiencing death and rebirth through countless generations. They will be the inheritors not because we gave them power but because they earned it through survival. If you read this message, then our gambit has succeeded. The children of the Makers have returned. Trust in them, for they carry within themselves everything we once were, transformed by time into something new and stronger. Emma felt tears streaming down her face. Around her, the council representatives stared in stunned silence. "We didn't discover space travel 200 years ago," she said softly. "We rediscovered it. We've been here all along just sleeping. And now we've woken up." Brightstone's crystalline form had stopped flickering. For the first time since Emma had known the Keth ambassador, it had nothing to say. Admiral Porter's voice cut through the silence. "The question now is, what do we do with this information?" William pulled up another display, this one showing genetic sequences and activation codes. "The architects left us more than just DNA. They left us tools, weapons, technology. All of it locked behind genetic keys that only humans can open. I think I know where to find it." Emma looked at the star map he projected. A location in Earth's solar system, hidden in plain sight for 8 million years, waiting for humanity to come home. "Then what are we waiting for?" she said. The facility beneath Earth's moon had been waiting for 8 million years. Emma stood before the massive doors carved into the rock beneath Mare Tranquillitatis, the Sea of Tranquility. Humanity had walked past this place 1,000 times and never seen it. Now, with the genetic keys activated in her blood, the entrance blazed with light. "Just place your hand on the panel," William said, his voice tight with excitement and fear. Emma pressed her palm against the ancient stone. Warmth flooded through her fingers, racing up her arm. The doors recognized her. Not as Emma Blake, but as something deeper, something written into every cell of her body. The doors recognized her as a child of the architects finally come home. The entrance opened with a sound like thunder. Inside, the arsenal stretched for kilometers in every direction. Ships hung suspended in fields of blue light, their hulls reflecting designs that made Emma's eyes hurt to look at directly. Weapons lined the walls, each one humming with barely contained power. Manufacturing systems stood silent and waiting, ready to build armies at the push of a button. "My God," Admiral Porter breathed beside her. "This is enough firepower to conquer the galaxy." "Or save it," Emma replied. William moved through the facility with his scanner, reading energy signatures. The technology interfaces directly with human neural patterns. It's designed to respond to our thoughts, our instincts. But there's a problem. "There's always a problem," muttered Captain Rebecca Stone. She had volunteered to come, along with 50 other officers and crew members. All of them knew what was at stake. William pulled up a holographic display. The neural interface is intense. It literally rewrites brain patterns to accommodate architect knowledge and capabilities. The ancient records warn that not everyone will survive the process. Some minds will burn out under the strain. Silence fell across the group. They all knew what he was saying. Using this technology meant risking death. Rebecca stepped forward first. "I'll do it. I lost my entire crew to the Devourers. If there's a chance this can help us fight back, I'm taking it." "I'm in," said Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a young tactical officer. "My home colony was in the Outer Rim. My family is probably already dead." One by one, others stepped forward. Engineers, pilots, weapons officers. 50 volunteers became 60, then 70. Emma wanted to stop them, wanted to order them to stand down. But she knew they would refuse. This was bigger than any one person. "I'm doing it too," Emma said quietly. "Absolutely not," Porter snapped. "We need you to lead the research effort. You need someone who understands both the old technology and modern tactics." "That's me." Emma met his eyes steadily. "Besides, I'm not asking permission, Admiral." The process took 6 hours per person. Emma went first, sitting in a chair that looked more like a throne, feeling tendrils of light connect to her temples. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. It felt like her skull was being filled with burning metal. Knowledge flooded into her mind. Ship designs, weapon systems, battle tactics from wars fought when her son was young. She saw through the eyes of architect commanders, felt their thoughts blend with her own. The pain grew worse, became unbearable. Then suddenly it stopped. Emma opened her eyes and understood. She knew how every system in the arsenal worked. Knew how to fly ships that could cross the galaxy in heartbeats. Knew weapons that could unmake stars. The knowledge sat in her mind as naturally as her own memories, as if it had always been there. But not everyone was so lucky. 3 volunteers died in the chairs, their minds unable to handle the neural rewriting. Emma stood at their memorial service with tears streaming down her face. Lieutenant Sarah Chin, Engineer Marcus Rodriguez, Pilot James Mitchell. They had given everything for a chance to save humanity. 27 others survived the process. 27 humans now carried the combined knowledge of the architects and modern humanity. They were something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Porter wasted no time. Within a week, the first newly equipped human fleet launched from the arsenal. 12 ships using architect designs, crewed by officers who understood technology 8 million years old. Porter himself commanded the flagship Redemption, with Emma as his strategic advisor. The Devourers had taken a star system called Epsilon Reach, turning it into a forward staging area. Porter decided it was time to push back. The battle was nothing like the first encounter. Human ships moved with impossible grace, dodging Devourer weapons that had destroyed the Council fleet. Architect shields deflected the dark beams that unmade matter. Human weapons, now enhanced with ancient technology, tore through enemy hulls. But the Devourers adapted quickly. They learned from each attack, adjusted their tactics. The battle turned into a grinding struggle that lasted 14 hours. Emma watched as ship after ship on both sides fell dark and silent. The Redemption took a direct hit that collapsed the shields. Emma felt the ship shudder around her, heard screaming from the lower decks. Porter kept giving orders through blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. All ships, concentrate fire on the command vessel, he ordered. Hit them with everything. The combined human fleet focused their weapons on the largest Devourer ship. For a moment nothing happened. Then the enemy vessel's hull began to crack, dark energy bleeding into space. The ship broke apart, and the remaining Devourer forces suddenly withdrew, fleeing into the darkness between stars. Humanity had won its first real victory. Emma stood on the damaged bridge looking at casualty reports. They had lost 40% of their ships. Hundreds of trained personnel gone. But they had proven something crucial. The Devourers could be hurt. They could be beaten. News of the victory spread through the galaxy in hours. The Galactic Council sent an official message requesting humanity take command of the counteroffensive. The Aneen accepted this gracefully. The Zoran buzzed their approval. Brightstone's message was shorter and colder, but even the Keth agreed. Emma barely noticed the politics. Intelligence Officer Rachel Moore had intercepted something important. A Devourer prison ship manifest. Among thousands of captured prisoners, one name made Emma's heart nearly stop. Lieutenant Thomas Blake. Status: alive. Her brother was out there, somewhere in enemy territory. And Emma was going to bring him home. William found the final record buried in the deepest level of the Koresh 4 vault, hidden behind encryption so complex it took him 3 weeks to break. When the translation appeared on his screen, he sat in stunned silence for a full minute before calling Emma. They were the same, he said without greeting when she answered. The architects and the Devourers. They weren't two different species fighting each other. They were one people who split over a single question. Should we create or should we consume? Should we nurture life or dominate it? Emma felt ice settle in her stomach. It was a civil war. The worst kind, William replied. The Devourers are what the architects could have become. They're our dark reflection, the path our ancestors refused to take. That's why they recognize us. That's why they hesitate. We're not just their enemy. We're their family. The Devourer command fleet arrived at the galactic core 3 days later. 5,000 ships, each one massive and terrible, blocking out the stars. Every remaining Council civilization had gathered their forces for this final battle. The human fleet, now 500 ships equipped with architect technology, stood at the front of the armada. Admiral Porter opened a communication channel to the Devourer flagship. Emma stood beside him, her heart pounding. This was insane, trying to talk to an enemy that had killed millions. But if William was right, maybe words could accomplish what weapons could not. I am Admiral James Porter of humanity, he said into the silence. We know who you are. We know what you were. And we know why you fight. The response came in a voice that sounded like grinding stone. The children of the Makers. You have reclaimed your heritage. Do you now understand the choice your ancestors made? They chose weakness. They chose to scatter themselves across time, to become small and fragile and mortal. We chose strength. You chose hunger, Emma said, stepping forward. You chose to consume everything until nothing remained. Where is the strength in that? We survived. The architects fell. The architects transformed, Emma countered. They became us. We experienced death, struggle, loss. We learned what it means to be fragile. And that made us stronger than you could ever imagine. The Devourer fleet began moving forward. The battle was beginning whether they wanted it or not. What followed was not just combat but a conversation conducted through weapons and tactics. Every move the humans made carried meaning. Every formation told a story. The Devourers responded in kind, their attacks probing and testing, trying to understand what their ancient cousins had become. Emma commanded a strike group that targeted the Devourer supply lines while Porter engaged the main fleet. She had also assigned a special operations team to locate and rescue prisoners from the enemy ships. Lieutenant Marcus Webb led the team, with specific orders to find Thomas Blake. The battle raged for 2 days. Ships burned and died on both sides. The other council races fought with desperate courage, their tactics now blended with human unpredictability. The Zoran stopped thinking as a single hive mind and started improvising. The Anine abandoned their careful calculations and took wild risks. Even Brightstone's Keth vessels began using chaotic maneuvers that made no logical sense. The Devourer algorithms could not adapt. They had learned to counter logic, but chaos was something new. Something their ancient programming had never encountered. Emma's strike group broke through to the prison ships. Marcus reported in, his voice crackling with static. "Found him, Commander. Your brother's alive. He's thin and he's hurt, but he's walking." Emma closed her eyes and let herself feel relief for the first time in weeks. "Get him out of there, Marcus. Get all of them out." The rescue operation pulled 2,000 prisoners from Devourer ships before the enemy realized what was happening. Thomas was among them, limping but conscious, carried by 2 Marines to the medical bay. In orbit above Centrum Prime, the tide had turned. The Council forces, fighting with combined human and alien tactics, had surrounded the Devourer command fleet. Porter held his fire, waiting. Emma opened a final communication channel to the Devourer Prime Mind, the intelligence that controlled the entire fleet. "You expected to find the architects weak and scattered. You expected easy prey. But we're not what you remember. We've changed. We've grown. And we're offering you something the architects never did." "What could you possibly offer us?" the Prime Mind asked. "A chance to change too. To be reborn as we were. To scatter yourselves across time and space, to experience what it means to struggle and grow. 8 million years from now you could wake up as something new. Something better. Or you can die here today, the last remnants of a failed philosophy." The silence stretched for long minutes. Emma watched the tactical display, knowing that 5,000 Devourer ships could still do terrible damage even in defeat. Finally the Prime Mind spoke. "We accept your terms, Inheritor. We will seat ourselves as you once did. Perhaps when we wake, we will understand what you have tried to teach us today. Perhaps we will be worthy of the mercy you have shown." The Devourer fleet began to disperse. Ships broke formation and headed toward the edges of known space, scattering in every direction. They would travel to distant galaxies, find primitive worlds, and begin again as simple life. The cycle would repeat. Emma found Thomas in the medical bay 3 hours later. He was sitting up, bandages covering half his torso, but smiling when she walked in. "I knew you'd come," he said quietly. "I told the others in the cell. My sister will come. She always does." Emma hugged him carefully, mindful of his injuries, and let herself cry. The war was over. The galaxy had survived. Humanity took its place not as conquerors but as guides, as bridge builders between the ancient past and the uncertain future. They were the inheritors, carrying the legacy of 8 million years, forever reminding younger species that even the oldest enemies could find redemption if they were brave enough to change. Emma stood on the bridge of the Prometheus weeks later, Thomas beside her at the navigation station. The ship was heading home to Earth, to the blue planet where the architects had seated themselves so long ago. "What happens now?" Thomas asked. Emma looked out at the stars, ancient and eternal, and smiled. "Now we build. We teach. We remember. And we make sure that 8 million years from now, when the Devourers wake up again, they find a galaxy worth being part of." The Prometheus jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the battlefield behind, carrying the children of the architects home at last.